Pero may nakita tayo na nakasuit pero may mga naka-rubber shoes lang.
Naka-rubber shoes?
Oo.
Sino?
Si Senator
Gigoy.
Joel Villanueva.
Villanueva, nakasuot lang ng rubber shoes?
Pero nakasuit, naka-American suit na.
Pero naka-rubber shoes?
Oo.
Ang rubber shoes na 32,000.
Siguro.
Nakita mo na ba ako naka-rubber shoes din? Pero 32,000. Bino mo yun? Rubber shoes nga, pero 32,000 naman.
Oo. Kahit naka-rubber shoes, mahal.
Yung may kulay, iba-ibang kulay, di ba? Iba?
Anyway, mabanggit lang natin na kanina.
Kasama ba niya yung kanyang girlfriend? Ni Win Gatchalian?
Oo.
Ayun, yung Miss Philippines? Yung kasama, napapanood ko lagi sa probinsyano?
Yung matangkad.
Oo.
At sexy. So kasama niya. At siyempre, isa rin sa mga sobrang kiblig yung mga nandito sa PICC ay nung si Heart Evangelista na napaka-sexy.
Okay. Si Chis Escudero, kasama niya si yung asawa niya?
Oo nga, sabi ko nga si Heart.
Si Heart kasama, okay. Okay, kala ko hindi niya kasama yung heart niya. Okay, dapat kasama.
Kasama lang ni Senator Chis Escudero ay si Heart Evangelista. Hindi niya nakasama yung mga anak dahil yung anak na lalaki ay
ayun, andyan din.
Habang yung anak na babae naman ay may klase. Anyway, kanina...
So lahat ba ng mga kandidato kasama yung mga mahal nila sa buhay?
Oo naman.
Okay.
Ay, yung ni Mark Villar, nandito yung asawa niya na dating congresswoman at dating DOJ Undersecretary. Rin, sila si Senate President Manny Villar at saka si Senator Cynthia Villar. Ito naman pagdating kay Robin Padilla, isa sa mga guests niya, si Senator Christopher Bongo.
Kasama niya?
Kasama niya. Pagdating naman kay Alan Peter Cayetano, kasama sa guest si Senator Pia Cayetano, kanyang ate. So, ilan yung mga senador na nandito sa PICC para nga samahan at makiisa dito nga sa proclamation ng mga nanalong senador. So, kanina nga nabanggit ko lang na si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano doon sa kanyang speech, binanggit niya na meron daw isang mga...
Sino ba ang una nag-speech? Sino ang una nag-speech?
Siyempre yung pang-12. Ang panghuli yung nangunguna. Kaya si Robin ang nag-i-speech ngayon.
Ano yan? Siya ba ang una nag-i-speech o siya ang huli?
Siya yung huli. Ang unang tinawag yung pang-12.
Baligtad baligtad. Yung panguna, siya yung huling tinawag.
Oo, yung pinakamataas ng boto, siya yung panghuli.
Ayun. Parang siya yung climax, number 1, ha?
Oo, totoo.
Talaga.
Pero hindi ko lang napansin kung kasama niya yung kasama niya na si Mariel. Kasi yung iba na nakasuot ng pang-Muslim. Oo, yung mga nakasuot din ng pang-Muslim na kasama. Itong si Have a Wonderful Tonight, yung kanyang closing. Yung si Robin Padilla. Ayan, maglakas yung palakpakan kay Robin at ang kanyang huling binigyan ng salita, Have a Wonderful Tonight.
Mukhang mahaba yung speech niya.
Diba?
Mukhang mahaba yung speech ni Robin,
Oo, at mukhang wala siyang kodigo nung siya ay nag-speech. Kasi nung campaign, lagi niya kinakanta.
Wala siyang gamit wala siyang kodigo?
Kodigo, wala
Walang kodigo.
Ang hawak lang niya yung kopya ng Certificate of Proclamation.
Talaga?
Oo. So, yan lahat sila ang pinasalamatan, ang COMELEC, pinasalamatan lahat ng mga sumuporta sa kanila sa nakalipas na eleksyon. Ito, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, kanya sinabi, marami daw nag-a-aspire maging Senate President na tawag daw ng tawag, namumulit. Pero kanyang binanggit, ewan ko ba biglang nagsabi siya na I hate drugs, I hate sabong, meron pa siya mga I hate incompetency, inefficiency, may mga ganun binanggit. Itong si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Katong si Robin, nilapitan itong kanyang mga supporters. Kasama itong artista na si Robin Padilla. Yung dating nasawa ni Chris Aquino, yung nag-asawa.
Kala ko yung mga naging kapartner niya sa mga pelikula like Sharon Cuneta.
Philip Salvador. Si Philip Salvador.
Kasi yun ang mga nag-hit niya sa takil niya. Kasama niya si Sharon Cuneta. Yun ang mga... ba't ka nagtatawa?
Nandito si Philip Salvador. Si Philip Salvador yung kasama niya.
Si Philip Salvador, ayan.
Ayan. At tapos lumalabas na ngayon itong Senator Christopher Bongo. Sumama lang siya talaga
Parang
dito.
siya yung, parang yung, yan ang si Bongbong, si Bongbong, ano ang kanyang parang campaign manager niya, no?
Si Bongo?
Oo. Hindi, si Bong Kakong, parang campaign manager niya, di ba?
Bong Revilla Jr.?
Hindi.
Sinong Bong?
Sino bang kasama niya diyan? Nakamo. Maliban kay ano, sino kasama niya?
Senator Christopher Bongo.
Si Bongo. Si Bongo nga pala. Yung, si Senator Bongo.
Philip Salvador.
Philip Salvador, okay.
Yan ang mga kasama niya dito. Anyway, kanina pala binanggit itong si Rafi Tulfo na excited daw siya, although kinakabahan. Dahil first time niya maupo na senador, pero in-assure niya na gagawin daw niya ang lahat para makuha ang tiwala ng taong bayan sa kanyang kakayanan para maging sa pagiging senador. So paano nandun daw yung kanyang kaba, although nandun din naman yung excitement bilang isa na first-timer senator. Yun ang binanggit nitong si Rafi Tulfo.
Okay.
Lahat naman sila nangako na gagawin nila lahat.
Ilan yung mga first-timer natin? Robin Padilla, Mark Villar, Rafi Tulfo. Wala na. Yun lang. Yun ang mga first-timer natin. Lahat, the rest ay puro mga veterano na yan.
Oo, mga nagbabalik senado. Like ito, magkapatid
yung iba nagbabalik na
at Jinggoy. Oo.
Balik senado lang yan eh.
Senator Chicho Escudero. Lahat ito mga returning senator.
This is Radio Philippines Network. E-Triple-X Zamboanga. E-Triple-X Zamboanga. The Great 108. This is Radio Philippines Network. The power, the first, the leader.
Suena balance, mafuerza. Este el RPND XXX, Radio Ronda Zamboanga. RPN, Radio Philippines Network, Radio Ronda.
E-Triple-X Zamboanga.
Kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, 12 winning senators officially proclaimed after clinching the Filipino vote. They complete the Senate for the incoming 19th Congress. A day after confirming the local transmission of the new Omicron subvariant in some areas, the government gives the go signal to administer a second booster shot for senior citizens and health workers. And less than a week after the thrilling UAAP men's basketball finals, fans now look forward to the next exciting match. Just moments ago, we witnessed the Commission on Elections sitting as the National Board of Canvassers proclaimed the 12 winning senators. Our Melissa Lopez joins us from the Philippine International Convention Center in Pasay City, where the ceremony took place. Melissa, what are the highlights?
Yeah, all 12 winners in the Senate race have been proclaimed. The program is now completed, but the photo ops are still ongoing. They claimed a victory out of 64 contenders after a 7-month stretch since they filed their candidacies in October 2021. The ceremony started at 4:17 p.m. led by COMELEC Chairman Saidamen Pangaruman. It was a rainy afternoon and forced the full body to adjust with a shorter red carpet and a 15-minute delay as it waited for all 12 senators-elect to arrive. The proclamation was done in ascending order, with commissioners taking turns for senators. First to be proclaimed was top 12 candidate Jinggoy Estrada. He returns to the Senate after having lost in 2019. He is part of the Marcos Duterte slate and garnered 15.1 million votes. Re-electionist Senator Risa Ontiveros secures a second term with 15.42 million votes, the only opposition candidate to snag a spot. Next to be proclaimed was JV Ejercito. He also returns to the Senate after losing in 2019. Other senators-elect are incumbents Joel Villanueva and Mig Zubiri, Taguig Representative and former House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, former Public Works Secretary Mark Villar, who joins his mom in the Senate, Sorsogon Governor Chief Escudero, Senator Vin Gatchalian, broadcaster Rafi Tulfo, best known for its public service shows, Antique Representative Lauren Legarda, who will return to the Senate after a 3-year stint in the House, and on top of the list, actor Robin Padilla, who amassed 26.61 million votes. He came with 11 guests, including Senator Bongo, despite a 5-person limit. His priority changes in the 1987 Constitution. The senators-elect came with their wives, parents, and other family members and staff to fill that 5-guest limit. It was a festive moment, and despite the pandemic, commissioners held their hand, or at least their wrist, of each winning senator-elect for the traditional hand-raising gesture. The vote includes some 680,000 ballots cast in Lanao del Sur, where several barangays are set to hold special elections next week after violent incidents disrupted the voting process last May 9, and nearly 2,000 voters in Shanghai, China, who were not able to cast their votes due to a lockdown. The duly proclaimed senators-elect were given time to deliver a speech on stage. Most of them thank the Filipino voters. They also thank the COMELEC for supposedly mounting a clean and efficient election and vowed to fulfill their campaign promises, among them more jobs and pro-people measures. Back to you, Pia.
Yeah, Mel, while you were speaking, light moment going on during the photo opportunity, Jinggoy and JV Ejercito Estrada with, giving each other a hug and raising each other's hands just a while ago. And that photo opportunity, like you were saying, just going on just right now. But tell us, Mel, now, what happens next when these senator-elects can be officially called senator on June 30, right?
That's right. Pia, what's left for the senators-elect to do is to take their oath of office and wait for a time of June 30 to start their 6-year term and assume office at the Senate also here in Pasay, although we acknowledge that some of them are re-electionists, so they're about to stay in their current offices in the Senate building. Their main job to propose new laws and maintain checks and balances with the executive and judicial branches.
At this point, we can still call Joel Villanueva, Mig Zubiri, Sherwin Gatchalian, and Risa Ontiveros senators because they are incumbent senators and have only been re-elected to a 6-year term, a second 6-year term.
That's right, Pia.
Melissa Lopez there reporting from the COMELEC's command center in PICC in Pasay City. Another petition against Bongbong Marcos's presidential bid reaches the Supreme Court. The campaign against the return of the Marcoses in martial law, or KARMA, filed its petition for certiorari, questioning the COMELEC's decision to junk an earlier appeal to disqualify him from the race. For the group of martial law survivors, its petition against Marcos is more than a legal issue, but a moral and historical one, and that the son of the late dictator should not be allowed to run. Well, some Filipinos able to meet presumptive President Bongbong Marcos in Melbourne, Australia. Netizen Kat Lagarto even posted selfies with Marcos and his son Vinny. Lagarto shares it was a short meetup with supporters that lasted for about 15 minutes. The Marcos campaign confirming yesterday that he is on a private trip to Australia with his family for a much-needed vacation before he takes office. The Coast Guard welcoming the arrival of 2 vessels that embarked on a week-long buoy-laying operation in the West Philippine Sea. As Stanley Geheta tells us, the vessels are not just a symbol of our sovereignty, but also of women empowerment, as they are commanded by 2 female officers.
It was a day of honor and pride for the Philippine Coast Guard and the whole country after buoy navigation markers were successfully installed in the disputed waters in the West Philippine Sea. Coast Guard officers conducted buoy laying operations from May 10 to May 17 near Lawak Island, Likas Island, Parola Island, and Pag-asa Island through 2 buoy tenders carrying the Philippine flag, the BRP Corregidor and BRP Bohiador, together with other vessels based in Palawan.
We have mobilized the largest Philippine Coast Guard contingent in the West Philippine Sea with 5 PCG ships and 2 fixed-wing aircrafts, and some 350 Philippine Coast Guard personnel.
The mission was deemed as a symbol of country's assertion of its sovereignty in the disputed waters. It also served as a celebration of women empowerment after 2 female officers commanded 2 of the 5 vessels and braved the perils of the sea and foreseeable resistance from other claimant states.
Our PCG contingent is undeniably the projection of women empowerment. What man can do, woman can do as well.
Meanwhile, the China Coast Guard, which has a dominant presence in the West Philippine Sea, did not interfere with the operations.
Nagmo-monitor lang sila pero for mga 10 nautical miles makikita mo lang sila pero hindi sila lumalapit sa amin.
Kabuyaban and Shift Master Lisel de la Rosa of the BRP Bohiador did not find the task of leading the PCG contingent difficult.
Basta marunong ka makisama sa kanila, marunong ka makitungo sa kanila, so wala kang maging problema. Kung maayos yung decision making mo, pamano kala mo sa barko mo, susunod naman sila.
The navigation markers will guide sailors and Filipino fisher folk at night and will clearly mark the Philippine territory.
Yun naman ang gusto nating lahat ng mga Pilipino to say that what is ours will be ours. So this is also a way of asserting our ownership.
Stanley Gahete, CNN Philippines.
Now, here are other headlines you need to know. The Labor Department says the new order increasing the minimum wage in Metro Manila by 33 pesos will take effect on June 3. The order brings the minimum wage rate in the capital region to 570 pesos for the non-agriculture sector and 533 pesos for the agriculture sector. The department says if the wage order for Western Visayas will be published tomorrow, it will also take effect on June 3. The agency adds minimum wage earners in Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, and Caraga are also poised to get higher pay ranging from 30 to 90 pesos. And it is official, it is already the onset of the rainy season. The Weather Bureau Pag-asa made the announcement after recording the presence of frontal systems and severe thunderstorms in the last few days. Now, this means Metro Manila and the western sections of the country can now expect intermittent rains associated with the southwest monsoon. More stories here on Newsnight. The Health Department greenlights a second booster shot for senior citizens and medical workers. And it is green and go for the much-awaited collegiate cheer dance competition, with 8 squads finally returning to the UAAP stage. You're watching CNN Philippines. Welcome back to Newsnight. As officials hope to immunize more Filipinos against the new Omicron subvariant, the Health Department approves a second booster for senior citizens and health workers. They can get either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. The government is hopeful this will help increase booster uptake and achieve the goal of 77 million vaccinated Filipinos by late June. But Carolyn Bonkin reports health workers still face challenges in reaching last-mile vaccinees.
About 2 million Moderna COVID-19 vaccines are expiring in 2 weeks, yet millions remain unvaccinated or unboosted in the country. These were mostly bought by the private sector. Their shelf life were already extended, but the stocks remain unused. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion now asking the Health Technology Assessment Council, or HTAC, to follow the US CDC guidelines. This means allowing a second booster shot for 50 years and older, or age 12 years and up, who are moderately to severely immunocompromised, and not just adults with select illnesses. He says this will address expiring vaccines, speed up booster uptake, and prevent surges due to new variants. But aside from the U.S., the Vaccination Operations Center chief says HTAC also looks at guidelines from other countries like the UK. She says focus should be in inoculating those with zero and low protection against COVID.
Ayaw natin, yan ang maging basis, hindi ba? Dapat the benefits of the vaccine should outweigh any risk rather than ipilit natin kasi mag-expire. Yes, masasayang yung bakuna, but if the experts feel na hindi naman kailangan na wala tayong magawa. Yes, they're about to expire. So kung pwede nang payagan na kaagad para magamit.
Nearly 17 million qualified Filipinos still don't have a single shot of life-saving vaccines. Millions still unboosted, and reaching the remaining unvaccinated today is a harder task than ever.
Ang advice natin sa mga healthcare workers, huwag na masyadong pagkabalahan yung ating talagang hardcore ayaw niya. Yung mga medyo pwede, yung talaga ang balik-balikan na lang natin. Kawawa naman sila kasi yan yung mga konting-konti lang natin, di ba? They are spread far and malalayo.
8 regions have at least 1 million unvaccinated people each. In Barilis, Cebu, we met 78-year-old Matelina Flores, still unvaccinated and not keen on getting one. She says she rarely leaves home anyway. Her daughter, Tadea, also unvaccinated. When asked why,
di lang ko gusto.
But later, Tadea tells us she's afraid of any kind of vaccine. Their friend from another village, Carmelita, also unvaccinated, afraid of hearsay about vaccine side effects from friends and neighbors.
Ayaw sa katawan ko magpabaksin. Parang kontra ba?
I'm afraid of dying, Carmelita tells us. Government records show no one died due to COVID-19 vaccines in the Philippines, and less than 8% had serious side effects. No health worker has reached out to them yet to address their doubts, but all of them firm that no one and nothing could convince them to take the shot. They said they're just leaving their fate to God. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
Metro Manila mayors are bent on preventing another surge in cases in the region where cases of the BA.2.12.1 have been detected. Lois Calderon explains how officials are using the situation to convince people to get boosted.
City mayors regroup with health authorities as a new Omicron subvariant seeps through the capital. All cracks are being checked for any signs of clustering, they say.
The 2 cases in Metro Manila are not in Quezon City, no. But of course, this does not discount the possibility of local transmission. So our surveillance team are very much prepared.
We have 5 active cases and none of them are of this subvariant. We will just continue to ensure that our people are vaccinated.
Cities have been fortifying their wall of immunity against COVID-19 mutations. So mayors move to convince their constituents, especially those qualified, to get vaccinated with booster shots for a second time. In Quezon City, over 835,000 people have been inoculated with first booster out of the target 1.2 million.
Based on their guidelines, the second booster will now be made available to everyone, I think 18 and above.
In San Juan, Mayor Francis Zamora says up to 80% received their first booster shot.
I also would like everyone to get their booster shots.
How city officials chart their battle plan against this subvariant jibe with what health experts advise, especially as immunity from the primary vaccine could wane.
If our wall of immunity is still good, since we have been exposed to BA2 in January and we have that natural immunity, and a lot of the population are already given the primary vaccine series, then we still have a good protection against the BA2.1, 2.1, and most likely we will not be experiencing surge or spike. We can still have spikes and surge, but not as high as what we have experienced from that with the Omicron variant BA2 in January.
If you got already the infection, then after around 90 to 6 months, 90 days to 6 months, then probably your immunity has gone down. So you need to have booster already.
With the Omicron subvariant regarded as low risk, city mayors say they will not convene yet as Metro Manila Council. Border restrictions or lockdowns are being ruled out for now. The past months have seen hospitals no longer overwhelmed, but they're not letting their guard down.
Metro Manila's battle plan has a singular theme. Instead of seeing this Omicron subvariant as an emerging crisis, they're using it as an opportunity to convince more people to get booster shots. But vaccine hesitancy is the other firewall that city officials need to break through. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration has authorized a Pfizer booster shot for children 5 to 11 years old. The third shot may be given at least 5 months after the two primary doses. Pfizer said a booster raises Omicron fighting antibodies by 36 times for children of that age group. The matter now goes to the CDC, which is set to meet on Thursday. Other headlines, U.S. officials now think the China Eastern Airlines flight that crashed in March could have been intentional. Flight data reportedly suggests someone in the cockpit deliberately downed the plane. The Boeing 737-800 was flying from Kunming to Guangzhou when it crashed, killing all 132 passengers and crew on board. Investigators have not found any mechanical or technical problems with the aircraft. Finland and Sweden, which have been neutral for decades, have officially applied to join NATO. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says they will work through any issues with member countries regarding the application. Turkey has said it was against Finland and Sweden's NATO membership. A new report by the World Health Organization and UNICEF shows almost 1 billion persons with disabilities and senior citizens are denied access to assistive technology that would make their lives easier. Chrissy Di Matura goes deeper into those figures.
Deishra Quazon is visually impaired. Her disability, however, is not a hindrance to using a cell phone. She can easily compose a message and hold conversations.
Yan, meron na po siya tinatawag na talkback doon sa may accessibility settings ng inyong mga cellphone. Kaya, yun. So, kami na mga blind po ay magsi-cellphone din na parang yung mga sighted lang. Minsan nga po may mga sighted na i-insultoin ka. Kala nila hindi nakakapag-type.
Through the phone features, she has joined a group of voice talents.
Sa aming mga visually impaired or totally blind, normal po ang ma-discriminate na parang, ganyan ka na lang.
Deishra had to stop school for lack of funds. She's supposed to be a college freshman this year.
Gusto daw niya laptop sana kasi kailangan. College na kasi, yun talaga hindi ko kayang bilhin.
The World Health Organization and UNICEF have called on governments, industry donors, and civil society to fund and prioritize access to products that aid people with disabilities. A new report published by the two United Nations agencies states that more than 2.5 billion people are in need of so-called assistive products, such as wheelchairs, hearing aids, or apps that support communication and cognition. In the Philippines, the National Council on Disability Affairs, or NCDA, admits that extending assistance for persons with disability is a work in progress. NCDA Executive Director Emerito Rojas says the agency is coordinating with the private sector and local governments to help in the assistance program for PWDs.
The government provided to those deserving or indigent recipients. Hindi po yan libre sa lahat. We have other partner providers that provide that if the government cannot provide it for free.
The WHO and UNICEF say nearly 1 billion PWDs, particularly in low and middle-income countries, have no access to these products. For Daishril, her family hopes that visually impaired people would have the same opportunities as the rest with proper access to assistive products. Christy Matulak, CNN Philippines.
In other news, broadcaster and former special envoy to China, Mon Tulfo, is arrested for cyber libel. Tulfo is now under the custody of the special mayor's reaction team at the Manila City Hall after his arrest this morning. The Manila Regional Trial Court Branch 24 issued the warrant. Former Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre confirmed to CNN Philippines he was the complainant in the case. Aguirre previously filed numerous libel and cyber libel charges against Tulfo regarding supposedly malicious newspaper columns. Mon Tulfo is the brother of Senator-elect Raffy Tulfo. Lots of action when we come back. Team Philippines bags its first gold medal in yet another sport in this year's Southeast Asian Games. And a win for UAAP fans with a cheer dance competition finally happening this weekend. We'll tell you where to buy tickets after the break. You're tuned into Newsnight here on CNN Philippines. NBA updates now. Miami Heat snatching Game 1 of the East Finals, beating the Boston Celtics 118-107. Jimmy Butler scored 41 of Miami's points. Game 2 kicks off Friday, 8:30 a.m. Philippine time. Here at home, get ready to see all kinds of stunts on the UAAP stage again. Some schools announced ticket details for the cheer dance competition. The event is set for Sunday at the Mall of Asia Arena. Adamson University and FEU Athletics posted that they will begin ticket sales tomorrow, while the UP Alumni Group said selling opened at the school this morning. Now on to other SEA Games events. Team Philippines hauls in medals in billiards today. Johan Chua earns the country's second gold in the sport, winning the men's 9-ball pool singles. Carlo Biado clinches the silver medal after losing to Chua. And in men's one-cushion carom singles, Francisco de la Cruz and Efren Batarrias take a bronze each. Plus, the national team also claims its first medal in archery. The trio of Pia and Monica Bidaure and Phoebe Amistoso struck gold in women's team recurve. Pinoy fencers complete their SEA Games run with the men's foil and women's saber teams getting bronze today. The Philippines now has 1 gold, 3 silver, and 4 bronze medals in fencing. In basketball, Gilas Pilipinas crushes Singapore for its 3rd straight win, final score 88-37. The country remains steady at 3rd in rankings next to host Vietnam and Thailand. The Philippines medal tally is at 133, and 36 of those medals are gold. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Cancer continues to be one of the leading causes of death around the world. But with many medical advances today, more and more patients can go on to live long and happy lives. Keys to this are proper treatment and prevention of cancer's complications. And among these complications is lymphedema. It's a condition that occurs when excess fluids collect in our tissues. As a result, it can cause swelling in the arms, hands, legs, or even your feet. On the program today, we'll talk more about the symptoms of lymphedema, its triggers, and how to keep it under control. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. If your neck, arms, or legs are swollen and in pain, you might have lymphedema. Our guests are here today to tell us more about this condition and tell us how we can best manage it. With us is Dr. Ramayana Diaz Garcia, who's an adult cardiologist and vascular specialist from St. Luke's Medical Center in Quezon City, as well as Global City. Also with us is Mr. Jason Francis Rojas, who is a lymphatic specialist at VRP Medical Center and St. Luke's Medical Center, Global City. Doc Maya, I'll start the discussion with you. For our viewers to better understand lymphedema, let's first give a brief background. What is the lymphatic system?
The lymphatic system is actually part of our vasculature, though it's actually considered as the forgotten child of the vasculature family. We know arteries that carry the blood from the heart to the rest of the body, and the veins that carry the blood back to the heart. Now, the lymphatic system is composed of multiple vessels that also has fluid inside that performs 3 major functions. It works as drainage of excess fluid from the tissues. It absorbs fat and fat-soluble vitamins from the digestive system, and even acts as a defense mechanism through the lymph nodes and its organs to fight off bacteria, certain microorganisms, and certain diseases as well.
Now, Jason, what happens when our lymphatic system is damaged, either for one reason or another? We will be discussing one of the more common reasons later on. But what happens, Jason, kapag na-damage ang lymphatic system ng isang tao?
Right. So with chronic damage to the lymphatic system, you expect that the lymph or the fluid within the system cannot actually flow as well as in the normal system. And an immediate and often very debilitating concern that may happen is what we call lymph edema. This is where the limb swells, and it's not just found in the limb. No, you can also have lymphedema or swelling in the chest, in the face, and in the genital area.
Pag-usapan naman natin ang mga reasons or one of the more common reasons why someone might have lymphedema. Dr. Maya, let's talk about that, yung mga common reasons for this.
Any conditions that may impair the function of the lymphatic system will cause lymphedema. So we have certain infections, parasitic infections, such as that of filariasis, or what we commonly know as the elephantiasis. We also have certain history of thrombosis, venous thrombosis, that can also lead to impairment of the lymphatic system. And of course, certain conditions, particularly cancer treatment, that also affects the lymphatic nodes, that impairs the function of the lymphatics, leading to lymphedema.
Now, let's talk about the reason why someone may have lymphedema due to cancer. Dr. Maya, what types of cancers are usually seen with this complication of lymphedema?
So lymphedema would usually present later on the course of the treatment of the patients. Most cancer patients will be undergoing certain therapies and certain treatment. Because some malignant cells can invade the lymphatic nodes, the treatment would sometimes involve removal of certain of the lymph nodes, and even the radiation therapy or brachytherapy can destroy these lymphatic nodes, leading to impairment of the lymphatic system, leading to lymphedema.
Now, Jason, ano yung main symptoms nito? Bigla-biglaan bang magkakaroon ng swelling for someone who's had cancer treatment for this?
You know, Doc, that's the interesting about lymphedema. There is no set, a specific onset, for example. Just to give you an idea, I've had some cases of lymphedema coming to my clinic 2 weeks after surgery. I've also had cases where the patient had breast cancer surgery 10 or even 15 years ago. So there's really no specific date of onset. But one thing we did notice is that the closer it is to surgery, actually within 2 years from surgery, then your risk is about 56%, especially if it's axillary dissection. And then as you go further away from surgery, then your risk does drop naman.
Jason, are there any things that people can do post-surgery that can sort of help prevent this lymphedema?
Yes, absolutely. Lymphedema, especially if you search this online, if you see the pictures, it can be very scary, very traumatizing to see these pictures. But I'd like to emphasize that lymphedema is a preventable disease. So immediately after surgery, and this is also what your surgeon recommends, you have to move your arm, especially if it's a breast cancer surgery. Exercise after surgery, of course, within the guidelines provided by the surgeon, is very important in preventing the occurrence of lymphedema. Another thing that we'd like to focus on is your weight. So we'd really like to get you within the normal BMI or normal weight range appropriate for your height. One thing that recent studies are pointing to is that obesity or higher weight gain can actually predispose you to having lymphedema.
Now, according to the CDC, lymphedema can be caused by cancer or by cancer treatment. Here in the Philippines, breast cancer patients in particular are most at risk of developing the condition. More on this when we return. We're your partner in healthcare. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Now, many people battling cancer are at risk of developing lymphedema, a condition that occurs when our lymphatic system isn't really working as they should. Doc Maya, continuing with our discussion, could you tell us how cancer leads to lymphedema?
When we have cancer, this usually involves, especially that of the malignant type, the malignant cells can go beyond the area of involvement. And these malignant cells can travel and invade the lymphatic nodes. And because of that, this would lead to obstruction of the lymphatic nodes and eventually leading to lymphedema.
So just a reminder to our viewers, you must continue with the treatment for any cancer that you have, despite the risk of having lymphedema. Now, the purpose of this episode is to show that there is options if ever that lymphedema may occur, which is why I'd like to ask Jason, when it comes to lymphedema, is there certain stages of this, mild, moderate, severe? And is therapy or treatment applicable to all stages?
Absolutely. Lymphedema has certain stages, and we always use the ISL, or the International Society of Lymphology, staging guide. So for ISL, it actually runs from stage 0 all the way up to stage 3. Stage 0 lymphedema, this is what we call also subclinical lymphedema, or lymphedema is present but there's no apparent swelling. What some patients feel are actually the symptoms. So for example, you have in breast cancer patients, you have heaviness of the arm, you have some discomfort of the arm, you also have a feeling of tightness around the arm. Stage 1 lymphedema, on the other hand, has some mild swelling. No? Nagsisimula ng lumaki yung arm or yung leg. Stage 2 lymphedema can progress from stage 0 and stage 1 if there is no treatment involved. And then this brings us to the pinakagrabe na stage, no, which is stage 3 lymphedema. So this is what you usually find in the pictures when you search online. So this is swelling extremities, but more importantly, there are skin changes.
How can the proper diagnosis of lymphedema be established para maumpisahan yung treatment ito?
Even among physicians, no, the awareness of lymphedema is still not that widespread, especially here in our country. That's why we are increasing, we are trying, together with Sir Jason, we are really promoting increased awareness of lymphedema. And primarily because this is a diagnosis of clinical presentation. Through clinical investigation, by history and physical examination, we can determine if the patient has lymphedema based on their history and their conditions. But we do use certain diagnostic tools to also confirm if there is indeed obstruction in the lymphatic system. So we have the lymph scintigraphy, which is nuclear medicine diagnostic test that gives pictures of the lymphatic system, and we can actually see if there is an obstruction. The ultrasound of the extremities also helps us see if there is significant edema, if there are also other conditions such as thrombosis or blood clots within the veins. And then aside from that, we have the MRI lymph scintigraphy as well, which utilizes the MRI in providing us a picture as well of the lymphatic system. And together with that, we can also identify if there are certain malignant cells that are actually obstructing certain areas of the lymphatic system.
So now that we've established the correct and proper diagnosis for lymphedema, Jason, let's talk about yung actual therapy for lymphedema.
The treatment is called complete decongestive therapy. We use a combination of physical modalities, for example, specific exercises. We use compression therapy in the form of either a bandage or a stocking. And also, most importantly, is we do manual lymphatic drainage, which is a series of skin stretches that actually resemble massage. So it's very, very relaxing for the patient. But at the same time, this relaxing technique will also give you very, very good clinical outcomes. You will really see very good decrease in your size of the arm or leg, and also reduction in your symptoms.
But maybe a lot of people who are watching this who do have lymphedema might be asking, maibabalik pa ba yung same symmetry? Will I have the same size of my arm, same size of my leg before I had lymphedema?
It's quite difficult for us to get exactly the same measurements that you had, or comparing at least to your normal arm. It's difficult to make it exactly the same. But one thing that's guaranteed is that there will be a very visible reduction in the size of your arm. And also another important thing, aside from the reduction in size, is the improvement in your quality of life, because as much as possible, we'd like to get you back into your normal daily activities with very, very little inconvenience to you.
Now, Doc Maya, are there any limitations Jason mentioned some exercise, some physical manipulation, massages and such. Are there any limitations? Are there some contraindications with lymphatic therapy?
That's why before we start having the decongestive therapy, it's important that the patient will be cleared by a vascular specialist in order to make sure that there are no other conditions that might become a problem during the therapy. Primarily the presence of blood clots in the venous system as well. And of course, we also need to look at the patient's heart and make sure that there are no other conditions that may impair their ability to undergo the therapy. Patients who might have symptoms of heart failure may not be able to tolerate the therapy because of the excess fluid that might compromise the function of the heart. So these conditions should be cleared by their doctors first before undergoing the therapy.
Seeking early diagnosis and getting that treatment is key in having successful treatment. When we return, we'll talk about life after lymphedema. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk. Now, living with lymphedema can be a very big challenge, but there are steps that you can take in order to control the swelling, relieve the pain, and get back that quality of life. Doc Maya, once treated for lymphedema, pwede ba itong bumalik?
Yes. So we don't actually say that a person with lymphedema will be totally healed. So this is a chronic condition that you may have a certain course of therapy, but that will still be continued with a good lifestyle, proper way of doing your daily activities. And you still have to go back to your therapist regularly to have this, to at least make sure that the lymphatic flow is already still maintained.
Now, Jason, for those who are interested in having their lymphedema treated and they do undergo the therapy and see very good results, significant results, how do they maintain it to have less chance of it recurring? Is there a change of diet, change of lifestyle? What should they do?
For lymphedema, the patient has to do the exercises regularly, and also they have to be maintained on very good compression garments, so stockings in this case. And I'd like to point out that the quality of life after receiving treatment is very marked. And also, as to the diet, it would follow mostly the general healthy diet that we espouse. One thing that we should reduce is the intake of salt, definitely, because that will help puff up the extremities again.
Now, Doc Maya, for those who are interested, do you have any tips on how they can get in contact with maybe groups? Are there any support groups for those with lymphedema or for added awareness regarding lymphedema?
As a vascular specialist, I belong to the Philippine Society of Vascular Medicine, and the Council on Lymphedema comprised also of lymphedema specialists who also trained abroad to also bring back here in the Philippines the training and also establish clinics that would address this problem. So there are certain institutions already, certain hospitals already with lymphedema clinics, and they can ask their doctors if they can be referred to a vascular specialist so that they can be diagnosed properly.
So as more and more cases of cancer do arise, we get higher and higher chances of a lymphedema patient suffering or having this complication. So the more awareness that we give people out there, the better that we can be able to properly diagnose and properly offer treatment as well. Before we go though, Jason, do you have any tips or final words for the viewers?
Essentially, what I'd like to really encapsulate is that there is definitely hope when treating this disease. It doesn't matter if the lymphedema started 2 days ago or 2 years after your surgery. There's definitely hope. And I'd like to also share with you a group that I founded. It's an online group. It's called the Philippine Lymphedema Network. So just type this on Facebook, and then you'd be directed to a site that actually shows the before and after pictures of some patients. And also it provides you a venue where you can interact with a lymphedema specialist. And also it will provide a venue where it can direct you to a qualified lymphedema practitioner that's closest to your area.
And with that, I'd like to thank cardiologist and vascular specialist Dr. Ramayana Diaz Garcia and certified lymphatic therapist Jason Francis Rojas for being with us today, sharing this very important awareness for our viewers. We appreciate your time and your insights very much. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we'll see you again next time here on MedTalk Health Talk.